Is it possible that you are using food as a way to transition throughout your busy day? If so, learning how to change this pattern could really help you to lose weight more quickly and more easily. Well, I'm Sarah with The Holy Mess, and I've been maintaining over a 100-pound weight loss for almost 2 decades now. I first learned about this concept, which is what I call transition eating, really recently, and it resonated a lot with me. So as you watch this video, tell me in the comments, does this resonate with you? Can you relate? Is it possible that you are engaging in some transition eating? In this video, I'm going to explain what transition eating is and the 3 ways that I recognize that I most tend to use it, and I think other women that I work with, the way they tend to use it and how to fix it. So what is transition eating? Transition eating is when you use food to fill the gap or smooth the way when you're moving during your busy day from one activity to another. So let me give you some examples, and these are from my own life. Going from one task to another, you might suddenly get hungry or wander into the kitchen or think that you need a snack, or maybe you always have a snack when you transition from one activity to another. It might be coming home at the end of your workday and you find yourself munching on snack after snack or eating while you're preparing dinner. It might be moving from taking care of someone, so taking care of your kids or a loved one, and when that time of downtime happens, you find yourself eating, even binging or compulsively overeating. It could be not wanting to stop at the end of a meal, even though you're physically full, but you want to keep that good feeling going, or you want the meal time to continue because you're a little hesitant about moving into the next activity. It might be eating before bed, or feeling like you can't go to sleep unless you have a certain type of food or amount of food in your body, or waking up in the middle of the night and needing food in order to go back to sleep. I've also seen for myself all of the examples that I mentioned at different points in my life, but also coming home from vacations. That used to be a time when I would really overeat or binge as I was transitioning from that vacation mindset into being back home again. Or like I call them my kitchen detours, when I'm about ready to go to bed, I've had all of my food or my points or my calories for the day, and I find myself like on my way up to bed, but I suddenly take a kitchen detour and am snacking, even though my body doesn't really need the food. Or even what I call prowling, where I'm kind of roaming in the evenings and I'm not exactly sure what I want. I'm not quite hungry. I'm not quite not hungry. And I'm looking in the pantry or looking in the fridge. I'm just looking for something to satisfy me or calm me down. And I'm using food as a way to do that. Can you relate to any of these examples? If so, you might be engaging in what I'm calling transition eating. Food is so readily available in our culture now, and you can refer back to one of my other videos where I talk about what my hunger is like, or another video where I talk about calorie density. We have access to food in a way that few other people have ever had, certainly as a whole population, that people really have never had. We have access to really almost a limitless supply of food, an endless supply of calories, which people never would have had across the centuries. And so really, some of the challenges that we face now are quite unique in that people in other cultures and other times never really had the challenges that we have now. Because we do have such access to food, and the reality is food does work. It does help us transition. It does help change our physical state. The issue is, for those of us who are overweight, it's causing other problems. So we don't want to continue to rely on food as a way to transition. But because we have learned to do this, it has become a habit, it has become habitual, or we have learned to rely on it. But the good news is there are some really simple solutions that can help you change this. So I see 3 main reasons as the way that you might use or choose to use food to transition. The first is sensory. It might help you calm or regulate your nervous system. The second is habit. and the third is emotional. So let's break down each of these a little bit. You can, I will give you examples, and so you can see how are you using food. Is it for sensory? Is it for habit? Is it for emotional? And if so, I will give you some solutions for each one. So with sensory, what we are talking about is using food as a way to regulate or re-regulate the nervous system. If you are using it to key yourself up, that would be a time when you're coming off of a low activity, a low level sensory activity, and you're trying to use food to give you energy. Maybe you're using food as an afternoon pick-me-up. I hear a lot of people say, well, I need sugar like around 3 o'clock to get through the rest of the day. Or I needed that quick burst of energy, so I had a protein bar. And it's always possible that your body does need calories during this time. I'm not trying to talk about that. I'm talking about times when you're eating food beyond what your body needs, or you're using food in a way that just isn't the most healthy way to address that need. So if you're saying like, I might need some extra energy to, fill in the blank, is it possible that you could regulate your nervous system in a different way? So a way to think about this is, what could I do instead? If you are feeling low and you need more energy, maybe could you take a quick walk? Could you have a really hot drink or a cold drink? Could you, even just like rub your arms quickly? What could you do to stimulate yourself so that you can get that energy that wouldn't necessarily rely on food, especially for those times that you don't really need the calories, you just need the stimulation. You could also be regulating your nervous system in the opposite way. Maybe you're keyed up and you need to calm yourself down. So this would be times when you need to unwind, you need to relax, you need to de-stress, and you're using food to do that. Well, what's really encouraging about that, if this is a sensory issue or a nervous system issue, is that you can learn other strategies. Now, I will tell you at first, those other strategies probably won't work quite as well because you're used to food. And when our bodies are used to something and that's our go-to, it works really, really well. But you can learn to calm your system down without using food. I mean, there's thousands of people all over the world that wouldn't even think of turning to food to calm themselves down because it's just not, it's not a way that they calm their nervous system. And the same can be true for you. You might always kind of think of food as an option, but you don't have to turn to it. And the more you practice using other things to calm your nervous system down, you're gonna get better and better at it. So for some people that might be deep breathing, it might be meditation, it might be prayer, it might be, when we're talking about the nervous system regulation, it might be some pressure, maybe using like a weighted blanket or a tight fitting, you could wrap a blanket around you really tightly. It could be doing, we call it some type of heavy work. That's what occupational therapists call it for sensory regulation. So it's carrying something heavy, feeling something heavy. For some people, that is calming to the nervous system. Now, I'm not an expert. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not an expert in sensory regulation. These are just a few quick ideas. This is something you can look into further if you think that sensory regulation is maybe a way that you are using food. If so, would you tell us in the comments, is it possible that you are using food for sensory regulation? And could one of these strategies possibly work for you instead of food? Number 2 is habit. And that just means that you have gotten into the habit of using food to transition yourself from one activity to another during your day. Now, don't freak out about this. Don't beat yourself up. It's just a habit. But what's great about this is that habits can be changed. Now, you've already done the first, absolutely most important thing with habit change is if you recognize it. I think before I had heard this concept of transition eating, I didn't even quite recognize that this was something I was doing. But once I heard of it and I started thinking about it, it was like, oh, maybe that's what's going on. So just recognizing it is huge. And the first step to changing it is awareness, simply being aware. Start to pay attention as you go throughout the rest of your day today, after you watch this video, as you go throughout your day tomorrow, and ask yourself, am I using food as a transition? Has this become a habit for me? Then, once you recognize it, your next step is to start to create a replacement. And just like with sensory, if you've been using food as a habit, this is going to take some practice. And at first, it's not going to work as well, whatever your new habit is, but it will work given time. Now, keep in mind that we don't want to just take a habit away. Research shows us it's much more effective to replace a habit with another habit. So think about, when you're considering how you want to replace this habit, what need is this meeting for me right now? So if you're transitioning from taking care of your kids to their nap time, or from your busy day to bed, or coming home from work, what need is the habit of eating food meeting for you? And how can you meet that need in another way? And another way to think about it is to ask yourself the question, what do I actually want right now? I've been using that a lot with my habit that I'm working to change of evening eating. What do I really want right now? And it's been really helpful, because sometimes I'll say what I really want is rest. Maybe I just need to go to bed. What I really want is relaxation. What I really want is to calm down. What I really want is nourishment. And like the word nourish, that's a powerful word. Yes, maybe it needs to be calories, but a lot of times nourishment can mean something else. Maybe I need companionship. Maybe I need to cuddle up with my husband, or talk to a friend, or send an email, or chat with my daughter. What do I need to actually nourish myself? I've also recognized it by just saying it out loud is really powerful for me. So sometimes I will say to myself, Sarah, I don't think you're hungry right now. I think you're just bored. Or, Sarah, I don't think you're hungry right now. I think you're just tired. And just saying it out loud can be enough to break that habit and help me realize that I don't really need food in that moment. I need something else. And that's when I can ask the question, what do I really need right now? And it's really helpful. So do you think it's possible that you are using transition eating as a way of it's become a habit? If so, would you share about it in the comments and tell me maybe what's something that you can do to start to recognize and replace that habit? Then the third reason that you might be engaging in transition eating is emotional. Now, before you start beating yourself up and saying, oh, I can't believe I'm engaging in emotional eating, this is so terrible, why am I doing this to myself, I'm such a failure, because those are all the things I used to say to myself, realize that it's pretty normal to have some stress around transitions. I mean, think about it. Think about toddlers. I was a foster parent for many years. We have 5 children. I did a lot of parenting over the years, and it's really a typical habit for most of us parents to give our toddlers who are in the middle of a play date or some playtime transition. We'll say 10 more minutes, 5 more minutes, 1 more minute, and then we're going to clean up. We're all going to do the cleanup song together, right? Because we know that kids need that transition time. And you learn your kid really well. Maybe your kid, 10 minutes is way too long. That just stresses them out. Or maybe 1 minute isn't nearly enough time. They're going to need a couple warnings of that transition. So it's normal to have some stress during transitions. And it's certainly not something that you need to beat yourself up for if you have been easing some of the emotion with food, because food is there, it's readily available. Like we talked about earlier, it's available in our culture in a way that it's never been available for most cultures before. So if you're engaging in some emotional eating, give yourself some grace. That is really quite understandable. I also want to encourage you that, yes, I do have many strategies I could teach you for emotional eating, and those might be some things that you do need to learn. I've got a really wonderful blog post about ending emotional eating, and it talks about toddler versus adult voice. I do want to encourage you that you don't have to fix all your emotional problems in order to fix your emotional eating. As part of the course that I teach together with my business partner, Becky, who has also lost 100 pounds, for Christian weight loss, it's a course and a membership called Faithful Finish Lines. We have a whole section for emotional eating. So if this is something that you want to delve into further, I would encourage you to check that out. But a quick strategy for right now is that when we eat emotionally and it's become a part of our routine or our day or something that we do on a regular basis when we don't want to face certain emotions, I call it your toddler voice versus your adult voice. The toddler voice is the back part of your brain, the brainstem, that primal part of you that's driving you to food. And then the adult voice is the frontal lobe, the thinking part of your brain, the cognitive, aware, smart, goal-driven part of your brain. So you have the toddler voice that is driving you to food, and you have the adult voice that is helping you make rational, logical decisions that are good for you for the long run. So if you feel like you're engaging in emotional eating, it can be helpful to start recognizing that and having that awareness that you might have that toddler voice that's encouraging you to overeat right now, but your adult voice can override that and make the stronger decision. So you can just ask yourself, toddler versus adult, what's going on right now? And it's okay that you have that toddler voice that is talking to you, but remember, you want the adult part of you to be the one who's driving the car. The toddler can be in the back seat and she can be chattering away, but it's the adult you want driving and actually making the decisions. So do you think you might be engaging in emotional eating that is a type of transition eating? If so, would you share in the comments and share with us one way that you want to start looking at that and maybe handling your food in a different way? So those are the 3 reasons that you might be engaging in transitional eating. It could be sensory regulation, it could be habit, or it could be emotional. No matter which one it is, or it could be a combination of all 3, you can absolutely overcome it. And you can start to use some of these strategies starting today and really see a big difference. This could be quite significant. You might be engaging in transitional eating many times throughout your day, and making even just one small change could result in a dramatic shift in losing weight more quickly and more easily. One other thing before we go I wanted to mention is that when you go through a big life change, that might also be a time when you have transitional eating. I hear from a lot of women who say, like, I got divorced and I ate my way through my divorce, or I retired and then I started gaining all this weight, or think about what all of us experienced during COVID, when things changed so dramatically when we were home for the pandemic. Sometimes I'll hear people say, you know, my kids moved out of the house and all of a sudden I had lost all this weight and I started regaining it. So these could also be times when you are experiencing a lot of transitional eating. So again, give yourself grace that these life changes are really big. Recognize that transitions take time. It's not going to shift overnight, but you can focus on just small, realistic changes of positive progress, not trying to be perfect, but making small, gradual changes where you'll really see a difference. So what about this concept of transitional eating resonates with you? Please tell me about it in the comments. I would love to hear about it, and we are all in this together. I am on this journey along with you. We are losing weight together. We are getting healthier physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I'm Sarah with The Holy Mess. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.